What's going on, guys? We are back again from the beautiful, wonderful, amazing Valparaiso, Indiana, with another Listing Leaders edition of the LeVelUp podcast. So we appreciate you guys joining us today. We got a really good guest in the studio today. She's an all-star, superstar, studette realtor. And she's got a lot of names. So it's Alison Rentschler, but I've got a list of different names that you can call her if you don't know her already. We've got Al, Big Al. I said the wife of Greg because I know her husband, but she said actually he's the husband of Allison. Yeah. So either way, yeah. Super happy to have you here today, Allison. We're going to be talking today about the do's and don'ts of first-time home buying, right? Yes. So before we do that, let's just why don't you just tell, for whoever's watching this that doesn't know you, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're
in real estate?
Why you're in real estate and why we should listen to you. Why am I doing this crazy job? Yeah, why should we listen to you?
Okay, so I got in real estate probably around 5 years ago. January 2013 was when I started. Okay. And I decided to go into real estate for the fact that I was a stay-at-home mom for about 13 years, and I needed some adult conversation. I've always enjoyed homes. Actually, my husband, Greg, that you mentioned earlier, he did have a license for a short time, but his other baby, Timber Seal, that took off. So that was, too many irons in the fire, if you will. So I went into it, and it's just been something I truly enjoy doing. I like helping the other people buy their homes, sell their homes, just get involved in real estate. It's a fantastic way to invest your money, and I wish more people would do it.
So the investing side of it, or the actual?
Just even if it's just for your own personal home,
Sure.
Instead of renting, and I get it, not everybody wants to have things that they have to maintain. Sure. I understand that.
Well, we're going to talk. We'll get into that part too, because that's actually a part of this that we should probably mention. But here's what I was thinking today. We were talking. So for those of you that have been watching this, we've been doing these podcasts now. We do a Friday edition where Casey and I just talk sales. Yesterday we talked about gratitude and just kind of overall motivation stuff. Friday we usually have a guest, someone local from the community. Lately it's been people that work with us or in our organization. And then Tuesdays, we're doing our real estate edition. And so I actually think that this specific topic, the first-time home buyer topic, is probably something that we could do like a series on. So like Absolutely. Today could probably be like one of maybe even 10, because when we were kind of just chatting before we got in here, there's hours and hours of content and things that we can talk about. There's one side of it that is like, why is Allison a realtor? How can we help somebody who wants to be a realtor? But then there's the other side of it, which is the people that are watching this that are considering buying a home. This is actually probably more for you than the realtor too. So I think we can be kind of a dual threat in helping. But one of the things, so let's just kind of dive right into it. One of the things that you told me, you said there's really two types of first-time home buyers. Why don't you explain what that was?
Well, when someone says, hey, I'm a first-time home buyer, usually what they mean is they've either been renting, or they just got married, or they've lived with mom and dad, and this is truly their first home, their first venture into the real estate world. The other side of that coin is if anyone has purchased a home before the 2000s, I'm really going to put you in a first-time home buyer category as well. Reason being
pre-2000.
Yeah, the reason for that is I'm sure everyone's aware, we had the market crash. It was a very tumultuous time in real estate. A lot of people, lost big on that. And anyone who hasn't purchased since that time, it's a whole nother ballgame now with loans and real estate and lending and, how things are done, as opposed to maybe when you bought your house in 1970.
So besides the lending process, what else is different? I mean, the market is different. Technology is different.
Exactly. Homes are different. Geez, you look at now and the styles are, and HGTV, I have to throw it out there because that's going to probably be the number one thing. People see homes on HGTV and boom, I want to buy a house. I want to have this. I saw how they did it. And it doesn't quite go that smooth. Yeah. It's not quite that process.
Yeah, so that's totally a little separate subject. But I always see that, like, Bob and Mary are first-time home buyers with a budget of $9 million. Like what?
She raises butterflies, and he's, a
Races
gardener.
Yeah. She races.
She races
She's
butterflies.
racist against butterflies.
Yeah.
No, so it's a good point. So it's a totally different. It's a different world. The game
and every
changed
state
a
is
little
different.
bit.
It's not, what we do in
States are
Indiana
different.
is different than Illinois. It's different than Michigan. It's different than California. It's different than Florida. So everybody does a little bit differently.
So I'm not gonna sugarcoat anything here. One of the intentions and the whole purpose of this show is that if you're local here, we hope that if you're gonna buy a home, that you use listing leaders. There's obviously an entire team of people. Allison is one of them that can help you. So there is a little bit of an agenda here. If you're thinking about it, we hope that you use them. But also, we're going to give you some good information and some just general things that you can use before you kind of just go out into the world and get thrown to the wolves.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So let's start with this. There's some do's and don'ts. Let's start with the do's. One of the things you said is that there's like a little bit of a which comes first kind of thing. Do we talk to a lender or do we talk to an agent? Now, understand this. What she's going to say isn't just because she's an agent, but there's some good reasoning behind it.
Yeah.
But you suggested that they talk to an agent first, right?
Yeah. I mean, we're out in the field every day. We're doing this. We're seeing things. We're going to give you a little more information. We're more, how can I say it? Our circle is a little bit bigger. The lender he's on his thing. The bankers, they're working on the banking aspect, but I have to incorporate all of those aspects.
Sure.
I have to take your lender into consideration. I have to take, how many people are going to be on this loan? Who's looking for this house? There's just so many things, so many factors into buying a home. I can incorporate all of those where when you just start out with the lender, he's just going to get you on the numbers game and get those paperwork in, but that still doesn't get you into
anything.
That doesn't. Now what do I do with that information? Where I'm going to tell you, okay, well, let's line you up with the lender. Let's see where we're at. Let's check your credit score. We're going to follow these steps. And if we follow those steps correctly.
Yeah, there's probably part of it too that you may know right away. So first of all, before I even say that, you said something to me this morning. You said you're not just a real estate agent. You're a professional, trusted real estate advisor. Yeah. That's a big difference. And I think I think that maybe one of the first things that people should understand is that there's a million real estate agents out there. All right. Yes. Just because your neighbor has their license doesn't mean that they're a professional, trusted real estate advisor.
Correct.
Huge difference, right?
Correct. We have agents out there who, they just want to sell for their family and friends. It's not their full-time job, and that's great. It works for them. Myself, this is my livelihood. This is my job. This is what I do. It's what I enjoy doing. I'm full-time, 9 to 5. There's no weekends off. Sometimes there's no holidays off. I mean, when we commit to this, our goal is to get you in to a home.
Right.
And that, I'm on your schedule. You're not on mine, if you look at it that way. So
that's one of the reasons why I never could be in your position.
It does. It takes up a lot of your time. And on that note, I have a great supportive family, and they understand that, and they work with it. But it's not for everybody. But
So I think one of the things that's important is that the starting off process, one of the major do's is get an agent. Mm-hmm. But I think that one of the things that we talked about is that you should probably interview a few agents before you go and just commit to someone, right?
And we're taught as we go through school. And when I took class, 5 years ago, the statistics were every person knew about 9 agents in their sphere. Right now, it's probably up to 11 or 12. So when the market's good, we have agents come on like crazy. Right now, I can tell you we're getting about 30 agents a month going through classes, passing, and becoming new realtors.
Aren't you on the board too?
I am on the Ganayer board of directors. So,
it's a big
I am committed. This isn't just a side job for me. This is a true passion for me. I forgot where's Adam.
Well, we're just saying that you should be searching for a realtor. There's a million agents.
Yeah, exactly. And every realtor, just because I know you doesn't mean that I'm going to work well with you. Sometimes knowing somebody is not. I know there's plenty of family who would rather not work with family because we do get it. I mean, we do learn a lot about you. We learn a lot about your history and your finances, and I can understand some people are uncomfortable with that.
That's a good point too. So if you're watching this and you're looking at, if you're especially a first-time home buyer, this is going to be an emotional experience. There's going to be a lot of stress involved. It's going to be I mean, there's probably going to be tears shed. I mean, how many times have
Well, and
people
here's the
cried?
thing, a lot. And
Yeah.
I tell you this, when I'm working with clients, one of the first things I tell them is, we act as counselors. We're not lawyers, but, we're filling out legal papers.
Sure.
We're, guiding you. We're there when you're happy. We're there when you're sad. It becomes overwhelming. It's very, very emotional process. We're there we help you with that, but we see the business side of it. So we can take that emotionality out of it and say, okay, well, let's step back for a minute. Let's look at this a little differently. I'm trying to...
And that's the difference between an agent and an advisor. An agent's just going to kind of let you do whatever.
Yeah, they may be, oh, you like this house? Okay, let's write an offer.
Sure.
And I know it's not the best property for you. I know we can do something different. I know it's just going to take a little bit longer where you're frustrated and you want to go, you're like, I'm sick of this process. And especially the last few summers we've had, anyone who's been buying a house will know, getting a house is almost impossible in some of our markets because they're on the market not even an hour. And, you get that message already, well, we've already taken an offer and, we can't get you in. So it can be very frustrating and there's heartaches. But I'll tell every one of my clients, there's no reason for you to stress. That's what I'm here for. I'm going to take all that stress on. Don't ever worry about anything. If you need to worry about something, I'll let you know you need to worry about something. But until that time, just enjoy it. Let me do the process. There's plenty of times where we have saved a deal and buyer has no idea that there was even a problem to start with.
So that's a good point. So if you're looking at, if you're going to go out and start interviewing agents, I think one of the things you should find out is that person capable of dealing with the stress that's going to go into it? Is that agent that you're trying to you're trying to work with, if this is just a part-time thing for them and they got a million things, and again, I'm not trying to knock any part-time realtors by any means, but I'm just saying you might want to find out, like, is it something that they're mentally capable of handling for you so that you can focus on finding your dream home, right?
Yeah, exactly. We want it to be fun for you.
Sure.
This shouldn't be something that's stressful. I mean, I can't take all of it away because you're making a major commitment.
Sure.
But if you're not comfortable somewhere, I'm going to recognize that. And I'm going to say, hey, I know, say you were approved for 150 and you've been looking at all these 150s. And now you're starting to sweat over, oh my gosh, my payment every month. Well, I'm okay. We don't have to look at 150.
Sure.
We can look at 100,000. Again, I'm going to refer back to HGV where you say it's like, oh, my budget's 200,000, and then they end up buying a $300,000 house. I'm not doing that.
Just a little over budget.
Yeah, I'm not doing that. If you say, and you can come to me, you can say, you can give me a number, 200,000, or you can say, I want to keep my payment at 800. I'm going to know those numbers, and I'm going to be able to find houses that works for.
Sure. So let's talk about a couple little basic things too. We'll go back into the do's and don'ts, but let's talk about first-time home buyers. What are some things you're going to have? Obviously, you're going to need to work with a lender. We're going to suggest that you get with an agent first. You're going to need at least 2 years on the job. What are some of these things, the financial things that someone should start to consider? Now, if you don't think you have these, that doesn't mean you shouldn't still contact an agent.
Exactly. We'll talk to you and we'll go over it with you. But what's going to happen is, and like I said, call us first. Because when we are talking to a lender, I'm sure everyone's seen the commercials. I can go online and I can get these great mortgages. They have these great rates. You should always shop around for rates. And we're going to have preferred lenders, absolutely. Doesn't mean we won't work with your lender, because sometimes your bank could be one of the best people to work with. Sometimes my lender might be a little bit better.
Well, look, I'll just say this. Being involved in flipping houses, when I get an offer on a house, the first thing I ask is who's their lender. Like, I want to know who they're working with, because I know there's some lenders that are good and that are going to actually get to the finish line. And then there's a lot of lenders out there. And again, this is not knocking the industry, but there's a lot of lenders out there that will give pre-approval letters that really are just a piece of paper.
Have a whole story on nightmares of that.
Sure.
And let me differentiate a little bit. So if you go to Rocket Mortgage or Quicken Loans or any of those, the steps with that is similar. There's nothing really different, except you're going to go from department to department to department. And they're not local. I mean, when I say local, I mean I can physically walk to my lender's house if I needed to, or I can get him on the phone at 10 o'clock at night when all of a sudden we have an issue that we need to resolve. 100%. I have worked with banks that are in Florida and they shut down at 4 o'clock and we're still sitting at the closing table and now we can't get anyone with the bank.
Sure.
No one wants to be in that position. Whereas my local lender, I know where he lives.
How many people do you think are embarrassed or maybe a little shy about that process? Do you see that?
A lot of people, because
getting personal.
Yeah,
they don't want to find out something.
You'll ask credit score, and they're like, "Oh, it's," but you're in the majority. Honestly, credit scores are not everybody is running around with a $700, $800 or 800 credit score. And our lender, we see it all the time, and we're going to say, "Oh, you know what? No problem. Let's work with this lender. He has some programs." And maybe you think it's going to be another year, and it's truly only 3 months.
Well, so there you go. So there's two things about that. So when you deal with an agent, if you're looking to buy a home, if you're dealing with an agent locally, they know the good people to go to. So you go and work with, just kind of imagine this, if you're listening, if you just fill out your information online somewhere, maybe you're more concerned about someone not knowing all your business, but trust me, they're going to find out your business regardless. So you go online, you fill out an app, and now you're stuck in this, you're kind of committed to someone. Well, as the process goes on, your agent doesn't know that lender. So if something goes wrong, the lender doesn't have any real tie to the agent. So if the deal goes bad, they don't really care, right?
Yeah, it is
but if
true.
you deal with someone local, and again, a bunch of them, I know a bunch of them.
Mm-hmm.
I know that if I get an offer on a house and Seth is the lender or Robbie's the lender, those guys they know me. They're not going to just put someone into a deal that they're not comfortable with, and that's good for both the agent, but it's also good for you, the buyer, because you know that they're all working together on your deal. So
and they're not going to avoid you
exactly
when problems come up, because problems do come up. And when I say low credit score too, it's not always a bad thing. I mean, I've had a lot of new home buyers who just don't have the credit. They've been really good with their credit. They haven't opened up 12 credit cards. What is the credit.
What is it? Is it 580? Is it 600? I think
that goes to your lender. Different lenders do different things, and and then that's a whole nother all the different loans we have. So depending on where you're at, I mean, it could be 580 in some cases. Typically, if we can get you at 620, that's a little bit better. But again, even if you have a 700, it doesn't mean that you're better than the 620. Sometimes the 620 is a better buyer.
Sure.
It's just all in your background and your finances.
So you mentioned another thing too around here, and I just know this because we happen to have some houses in this area, but we have an area that qualifies for USDA loans.
Yes,
so
I do a lot of those.
So if you just go online and you just fill out a mortgage or you fill out an application, every time you find a house, they're going to want to know the taxes, the address. They're going to need to know a ton of information, which your local lender will need that too, but they're familiar with the area. And so there's some areas where, like where we live, if you're listening to this, right on the edge of Valpo, there's another town called Couts. And someone might think they want to live in Valpo, but in Valpo, you're only going to qualify most cases for an FHA loan at best, right? But
you won't get USDA in Valpo.
But in Couts, you could qualify for a USDA loan, which is no money down, usually.
Correct. It's a good program. It really is. USDA typically is for any town, city that's under 10,000 in population. Sure. So we have Wheatfield, Rensselaer, a lot of Stark County. Right? Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of Hannah. There's a lot of, you can be right on the outskirts. Valpo is a tough town to get into. Valpo, Chesterton, those are higher population areas. You're not going to get a USDA. FHA, yes, you can get those. And FHA and USDA are very similar. I think really the only difference is your down payment.
But that's for a first-time home buyer. That might be all the difference in the world.
Yeah.
Again, to go back to the point of this, it's you got to deal with an agent. Work with someone who knows what they're talking about. If they're new to real estate, at least make sure they're with a good group that can help them. So let's fire off some of these do's and don'ts, because I want people that listen to this can walk away with something that they can use. We talked about get in touch with an agent. What are some of the don'ts? One of the things you said was don't open up a bunch of lines of credit. So if you know you're going to want to buy a house, don't go get Buy cards.
Yeah, and here's with that, when you're going to buy a house, it can't be like, oh, I'm sitting on the couch and you know what, I want to buy a house, and then tomorrow you can go out and buy a house. It's a process just getting to that point. You're going to need to have some money saved up. You're going to need to be in your job for a 2 years minimum. Sometimes there's some tweaks to that. You're going to want to be finding out, hey, is my spouse, is my girlfriend, is my mom, if there's going to be somebody else on the loan, we're going to have to take their income into consideration.
And that's all actually kind of more lending. That's more lender stuff, so the lender will deal with that. But I think the first step is getting in touch with you so you can push them in the right direction.
Yeah, exactly.
And one thing I just want to mention, if you're just joining us, the reason she's wearing a coat is because she wore a green shirt. Let's see what it looks like.
It looks like this.
I guess it's not that bad.
For me, it looks like a bear on my shirt.
It was like a clear shirt. So you can't wear green on a green screen. So anyway, I just was thinking, wonder if people are wondering if it's like
It's like freezing in here, and I have to have my sweater on.
Let's talk about something else here. Okay. You mentioned earlier there's this thing where nowadays they're so impulsive.
Mm-hmm.
Someone's working with you. They've called you, shown them some houses. Now they're driving to soccer practice and they see a house and they call the number on the listing or on the sign.
Yes.
Let's talk about that. Why is that so bad? Not only for you, but also for the buyer. Why is it bad to be jumping around and calling on a bunch of places rather than just going straight to you?
There's a couple reasons. One, first and foremost, it's always free to use a buyer's agent. It doesn't cost you anything to use us. Two, you start a relationship with us. You show us what you want, what you're looking for. We start to show you homes. We get to know your personality. We can start to see, oh, they say they want that, but what I know they're really saying is they want this.
Sure.
And now I've gotten this relationship with you, and I think we're doing well. And then instead of calling me when you saw that home, whether you just thought, oh, I want to see it right now, and she's probably busy, or, all these other reasons that you can think of.
Or you just get
caught up in the moment. Yeah, it's like, I want to see it right now. Yeah. And you call that agent, and now they've shown you the house. I am now out of that deal. So if they forward and purchase a home with that agent, my work was, while I enjoyed working with you, I'm out time and I'm out money. And I don't
working for free.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. And that's the beauty of it. I do work with you and there's no cost for you, but I don't get paid until a deal closes.
Sure.
So I'm not pushing you into a home just so we can close and I can get paid. No way. I mean, I'm working with a client that I've been with for almost a year now.
Sure.
We haven't got that right spot yet.
Right.
But, I'm not going to, if they jump to another client right now, that would be very awful.
Yeah, it would suck. Yeah. So there's two things. So if you're working with an agent and this agent has shown you homes and you guys have been, you've been working together and you drive down the road and you think, you know what? I don't want to have to go through the trouble of calling Allison. I'm just going to see if I could pop in here real quick.
Yeah.
You call that agent and they happen to be right there and say, sure, come on in. Just so you can understand what she's saying, that's now that agent's deal.
It's the same
Allison
with an open
gets
house.
Nothing. They get nothing out of that.
That's the same with an open house. If you've been working with me and then you decide Saturday, hey, we saw these open houses, this new subdivision. We're going to go through. Yeah, we're going to go through a lot of new. When you come into a new build, there's usually a representative from the builder at the property, and there's going to be a little card they want you to fill out. And on that card, you're going to put your information, and then it's going to ask you if you're working with an agent. Please just mark yes.
Yeah.
One, it's in your best interest when working with anyone to have an agent on your side to represent you. But two, if you do end up going that route, I can no longer help you as I am no longer being paid.
Yeah.
And they won't want anything to do with me. You can change if something happens between us later. That's fine. You can go back and say I'm not with her anymore.
Right.
That's not a problem. But just don't cut me out of the deal because you just didn't know.
Yeah. So think about this. You go through all the trouble of deciding that you want to buy a house. Then you go and you call and you interview several agents. You find the agent that you want to work with. Everything's going good. And you stop in and you go see a house and you end up buying that house. That's no longer your agent's deal. So be aware of that. Number one, it's just unethical. You shouldn't do it. Number two, that's how they make their money. So I think that
and the buyer's not paying me; it's the seller.
It's the seller. Yeah,
the seller's
it's not your money anyway.
Yeah. So
that's a great point, and that's probably an honest mistake that happens a lot.
Yeah, exactly. They don't, and you get pressure. You get pressure from the builders. They're in there, and they're trying to sweet talk you in it, and and I'm going to tell you, it's easy to just be like, oh yeah, no, no problem. Yeah, we're interested, and you fill out that card and you feel the pressure. You don't even have to fill out the card if you don't want to. There's no one holding you to do that. So it's for sale by owners. You see those too and you drive by and you think, oh, I can't use my agent. Yes, you can.
Yeah, you can.
You can use us. We will negotiate with that seller to get paid. So, in some instances, yes, that would be one place where you may pay us, but we work that out. We'll figure it out.
You're going to pay someone anyway. Yeah. Listen, I want to just tell you some real life story with this. We bought a house this summer, and we had been looking for, I don't know, we didn't look that long, but we had been looking for a while, and Kevin had shown us several houses, and Holly both. And I can remember there was one specifically that I was like, we were kind of hot for. Like we actually, Jenny wanted to write an offer on it, and Kevin was like, you would have probably wrote it if I really pushed you, but he pretty much told me no. I mean, he basically said, I think we should wait, and honestly, like, you don't want to hear that. When you think that you found something you like, it doesn't feel good to be told that's probably not the right thing for you. But I'll be honest with you. I drove by that house the other day, and I'm like, God, I'm glad I didn't buy that house, because we waited a little longer, and we ended up finding a house that was actually more money, but it was a million times better of a house than what we were looking at. And so I can tell you firsthand that I got emotional in it, and it was different for me because I was listening to Jenny. Jenny was more like, I like it, and I'm like, you know what? I don't love it, but whatever, let's just do it. You know, like that was kind of my attitude. I bet a lot of guys are like that too. And honestly, I wouldn't be as happy. I would be in that house today just like, okay, it's fine. But instead, I'm in a house that we love. And if I hadn't trusted my agent, it would have been a different story. So that's a little easier for me to say because I'm close with you guys. But look, there's so many agents out there. You can get close with someone, you know. And honestly, you brought up family. That's a good point. A lot of you have family members that are agents. You know, you probably want to talk to them about it. But the reality is that, you know, you got to like the person and want to work with them. If you've got an aunt that's just in real estate, I'd say do yourself a favor and work with someone that knows what they're doing.
Well, and I'll be honest.
Don't feel obligated.
Yeah, and sometimes
now, if you're that aunt, if you're her niece or nephew, then I didn't mean
they're
that.
a little young and you need to stay in school. But the family aspect can just be tricky because sometimes, you know, it's too casual. Sure. If that makes sense, you know, it's like, oh, it's just my aunt. Oh, it's just my nephew. No big deal. Oh, yeah, here, this is great. Let's go ahead. Great, I got in my house. And you don't really get that level of professionalism, I think, you know, when it's two strangers or...
Well, here's what you do. You look at it objectively. You're going to look at it as the structure of the home, the schools, all that stuff. Whereas your mom starts showing it, you're like, oh my gosh, you know, it's more of like a... You know, I could see it being more casual. Let's talk about family for a minute here, because we're gonna start to wrap this up in just a minute. But let's talk about let's say that you've established a relationship, you've decided you want to buy a home, you've talked to a lender, you've got a pre-approval, you know where you want to be, everything's going good, and now you find a house you want to see. Should you bring mom and dad and cousin and aunt and uncle and the dog and all the neighbors with you when you go look at it?
On your first showings, please don't.
Please don't.
Please don't. Leave family at home. I get it, first-time home buyers. I was one of those. My parents came to see the house after, you know, we picked out what we wanted. I'm on the good aspect where they thought we were crazy, but it was our choice, our purchase.
Sure.
Not every relationship is like that. At the end of the day, I'm happy for you to bring them along, but I'm going to sit down with you. I'm going to say, hey, look, I'm glad you brought mom and dad, but here's the thing. Are they paying the mortgage payment?
Totally.
Are they going to be living here? When's the last time they bought a house?
Sure, that's a good point.
This has to be your decision, and I have no problem pulling mom and dad aside and saying, listen, I understand you want what's best for them, so do I, but this has to be their decision.
All right, I could tell you this. If you called me today and said, hey, I'm looking at buying this house, what do you think of it? I'm going to feel obligated because you asked me to give you some sort of advice on it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So think about that. If you ask mom and dad to come along, dad, as good as his intentions are, probably feels some level of obligation to give you some warning. Because if you buy something that ends up being a bad deal, he's going to feel obligated. So I think what happens is they probably are finding like...
Well, they also want you to have your dream home on your first shot. And it happens for a few, but it's very rare. Your first home is usually your first home. It's 7 years or so, you know, when families change, maybe there's kids in the picture, maybe now we're married, or heaven forbid we're divorced. So things happen and things change. Mom and dad they're well intended, absolutely 100%. They want what's best for you. But I've also been in the market and know that what they want for you is not what you can afford.
True.
So I'm going to get you what we can. When you say I want a fixer-upper, I'm okay, well, I think fixer-upper to you is some paint and maybe some new carpet, and other people can do a whole lot of carpentry. So, and that goes to when we're doing an inspection on a home. I'm skipping ahead quite a bit, but once we find a home, we put an offer in and we go into an inspection stage. I need you to use non-relative, somebody you've never met before, and I'm going to give you 3 choices. You can use your own, just people that I've worked with that I trust, that can tell me what's going on and I know what they're saying. Because when you use a family member, it's really going to screw up your deal.
Yeah.
And that's a whole nother.
I've seen that a bunch of times.
Yeah,
too.
that's a whole nother day.
So the moral of the story, though, is, I guess the point is, family is, you want your family to be excited, but if you're a first-time home buyer, I could tell you, girls out there, women, your husband probably wants to be a part of this. And if you bring your dad along and your uncle along, it kind of dilutes it for him a little bit. So let it be a process between the couple, and if you trust your agent enough, you can involve the agent. They'll answer all the questions objectively. They've got your interest in mind. They want to make sure that you buy a good house, because let's just real briefly, how many times have you sold, like how many customers out there have bought multiple houses from you or from Kevin or your agency? All the time.
Yeah, it happens. Yeah, it's daily. I mean, I have a client who I've sold multiple homes to his family. I mean, it's just been, a family affair. So our job is to establish that relationship for you where you trust us. We're going to give you the best advice. We're working in your best interest. Again, I'm not going to lead you down a wrong path just so I can get paid. That does no one any good. I don't want you to be unhappy in a house. Yes, there are occasions where someone's moved into a house and less than a year later, they're selling the house again. Now they're having remorse. And in some instances, it could be that we said, hey, I really don't think this might not be the one you should buy, but they're so gung-ho, or, they decided not to do an inspection. And down the road here we have some problems. So.
I can tell you this, guys. Think about this. I'll just bring myself into the equation as a non-agent. Excuse me. I called on a listing site 5 years ago, and Kevin showed me a house. I wanted to buy that house, but he kind of talked me out of it. Actually, the very first one that we looked at, he put the best interest of me first of just making a sale.
Yeah.
And we didn't end up actually buying anything for, how long was it? Was it a year? I mean, it might have been a whole year before I even bought that first house. He had no idea who I was, and I had no idea who he was. And fast forward 4 years later, I've bought a ton of houses from you guys because now I got into the business and flipping.
Yeah.
But I trust him. And so had that first encounter not gone well, who knows? I might be using someone else. So he got a customer. We got a friendship out of it. The point is, guys, is agents, if you're listening to this, you should pay attention to what they're saying and understand that you don't know where that one deal can lead. It could lead towards 100 deals. You have no idea. You know?
I mean, we have plenty of agents who, we've sold a house. I haven't been in it long enough for this to happen to me, but, I've sold it to mom and dad, and then their kids buy, and then their kids buy. So, I mean, we have, plenty of agents out there who work with generations of families. And that's the way we want it to go. We want you to trust us so much that, you wouldn't send anyone anywhere else but with us. So, and I want to touch base, if I can go back a little bit, when we talk with the lenders, and I want to give you a little information on the difference between getting pre-qualified and pre-approved.
Big difference. Good question.
You know what? And everyone thinks it's a big difference, but there's not. Really, the only difference between a pre-qual and a pre-approval is that if you have been pre-qualed, it just means you called into the lender, you said some verbal information to them, they look at your numbers and say, oh yeah, that looks like that'll work, you're pre-qualified. Now, if I physically handed them my documents, my checks, my W-2s, all of that information that they want, they're going to give me a pre-approval letter.
Sure.
Now, with that pre-approval or that pre-qualification, it does not mean necessarily that you will get a loan. It's just saying that the numbers look well, and with what this quick check, we think you can move forward with it. But it's possible that once we dig deeper into, because you might overstate your overtime a little bit, or base your yearly salary on 6 weeks of overtime, and you can't. So
you might have been telling people for so long you made so much money that you've forgotten that you don't.
Yeah, you were laid off this month for a little while. So there's differences, and you just what I'm going to do when I get your pre-qualified letter or your pre-approval letter, I prefer the pre-approval, but with either, I'm going to call that lender and I'm going to ask that lender a few simple questions. How far have you gone into this? Are we really, does this look like a loan that's actually going to go through, or
Sure.
are we just,
And again, that's exactly back to why you need to go to the agent first, because the agent's going to have that relationship with the lender, or at least know the right things to say to the lender to get to the bottom of it quick. Because look, at the end of the day, she wants you to buy that house as much as you want to buy the house. You buying the house means she gets paid, so she wants that. But she's also going to use a little bit of discernment that if it doesn't look right, if the lender isn't, if they're just
if I'm
saying
getting some odd answers, or it's
Sure.
just, I can hear when something's quite not right. And also with that too, I want you to be either pre-qualified, pre-approved. I don't even care if you've said, hey, I called them and we're starting it before I start looking with you, because I don't want to get you, you think, oh, I should be able to do 200,000, and we start looking at these homes and it turns out you're only qualified for 120.
Or maybe you more than you.
Yeah, actually, you might fall into the better. It's like, oh, we can actually stretch that a little bit more,
Sure.
and now I can show you a few more houses that weren't available to you. I just don't want you to fall in love with something and find out later that we can't, for whatever reason, do it. It saves you time too, and that emotionality of it. I mean, I don't want to break your heart,
Sure.
and do that. Or I might be able to say, okay, well, let's save up for 4 more months, and then we can push it to that
Sure.
level.
A lot can change in 4 months, good or bad, in credit, and that's kind of goes back to what you said in the beginning. You could have a 700 credit score today, and in 4 months it'd be a 550 if you're stupid.
Yeah.
You could have a 550, and in 4 months get it up to a 620, and
and there's absolutely, and that's why talking with us, and then we can put you in touch with the right people who can help you do what you need to do. It doesn't have to be scary, and there's going to be a lot of terms that your lender might use and you don't understand them. Ask us.
Sure.
We can kind of break it down for you a little bit. But I'm also going to be honest with you, and you're going to ask me a question. I'm going to say, you know what, I need you to talk to the lender with that, because I'm not sure. And A is not the same as B is not the same as C. So just because
Sure.
your friend did it this way and it worked,
Totally.
it could be the same numbers, but it doesn't work the same for you.
So let's wrap up on this. This has been a really good one. I think we can do a bunch of these episodes, because I think there's a lot of good information, and we've really only touched on just the surface of it. But the last thing is that, and I'm just thinking as we're talking, I'm thinking about things. I have 5 houses that are about to become available that you wouldn't know about if you were just looking online. And so the other thing is, you work with a realtor, and you get with a good agent you could trust. You know about a few houses that I have. But there's also a million other people like me. So you know about deals that aren't even on the market yet. So get with someone good that you trust, and not only are they going to support you and kind of be there for you, but they're also probably going to be able to be like, hey, look, I know you like this house, but this one will be available in a week. Why don't we hold on?
And in some cases, I might even be able to get you in before anybody else, and we wrap that up before you even have to compete with anyone on the market. Absolutely. So we have tools. We have a whole tool belt that we can use to get you in. And my goal is that you are completely happily satisfied with your home when you buy it.
Completely happily satisfied when you buy your home. You should put that on your business card. Hey, I think this has been a good one, guys. Look, if you're listening to this and you're not in our area, well, first of all, let's say this. If you're listening to this and you're in the Northwest Indiana area, you need to get a hold of Allison or any one of the listing leaders. They're going to take care of you. They're going to make the process easy for you. But if you're listening to this and you're not in our area, get with a local agent. You could even call or message me, and I can get you in contact with one of these guys, and they can maybe give you some advice when looking for an agent. The idea here and the point is to help you guys and to be a resource to you, be some help to you, so that you can make the process easier, and then we can help you level up your shit no matter where it's at. But Allison, if they want to get a hold of you, how can they get you? Casey, go ahead and write in the comments. How can we follow Al? The
best way for me is on my cell, and that's 219-671-2898. I have a Facebook page. You can go to facebook.com/Allison's Homes, and it's Allison with one L. ALISONS. Phone number is 219-671-2898.
There you have it, guys. Well, hey, listen, thanks for joining us. If you've followed us all the way to the end, do us a favor and share it. Tag a friend. Share it with your mom. Tell everybody about it. We appreciate you guys. Have a great day. We'll see you next Tuesday with another Listing Leaders edition.
See ya.